Production support for the weekly special is provided by IU School of Public Health Bloomington, addressing public health needs by preventing disease, promoting health, and improving quality of life across the state and around the world through research, teaching, and community engagement. The Al Cobine Recognition Endowment Fund, established by friends and family of Al Cobine to support jazz initiatives on WTIU and WFIU. And WTIU members, thank you. School is out and summer is here, but that doesn't mean that education has to stop. Learn about living history throughout Indiana. Celebrate the power of civil action with the Women's Improvement Club of Indianapolis. Step back in time at the Schroeder Saddletree Factory in Madison, Indiana. And pull the past into the present at Battleground's Prophetstown Farm. Plus, join Bloomington's singer-songwriter Amy Olsner as she performs in the studio. Explore how history continues to inspire the Hoosiers of today. It's all coming up right now on the weekly special. Welcome to the weekly special. I'm Erica Sagone. For many, experiencing history is confined to text in a book, but Hoosiers across the state are bringing history alive with relics of past and inspiration for the present. At the Indiana Historical Society, one such story has taken on new relevance in today's cultural climate.
As the United States entered the industrial age, cities across America By 1900, thousands had uprooted their lives, seeking opportunities in the urban centers.
Indianapolis was a lot like other northern cities at the turn of the 20th century. There was a lot of industrialization, urbanization. By the turn of the century, by 1900, there were something like 18,000 African Americans in the city. So it was constant growth. You look at the time period, and one of the things that had to be addressed were skill sets, the ability to do some of these jobs, even rudimentary jobs, somewhat different than, say, jobs in an agrarian society. So you're having these people who, a lot of them having been farmers, are coming in a rural environment or now in this more urban environment. So they're having to, find jobs that are going to supply them the money and the resources that they need to exist. But it didn't take long for the city or for African Americans within the city to realize there was a greater need. There was a need of just kind of localization in terms of the community itself. And with that, you had the formation of quite a few women's clubs.
The Women's Improvement Club of Indianapolis was one such alliance, comprised of 20 African American women representing a diverse range from the community.
These women who formed the Women's Improvement Clubs were responding to the necessity of coming together in group to address these problems that they couldn't address in an individual way. The Women's Improvement Club was established in 1903 by William Thomas Fox, Beulah Wright Porter, Ada Harris. Initially, they were founded to be a literary society, but it did not take them very long to recognize that there was a lot of help needed within the Black community to address various issues, health being one of the greatest. They were very much seen as role models, and most of these women, if they did not have formal education, they were self-educated. And this had a great impact on the community because they looked around and they saw the needs of the community, and they went about the business of trying to meet those needs. There weren't a lot of public accommodations for African Americans. They had to be careful not to get sick in too large of numbers because there were just a set amount of beds that were dedicated to them at the city hospital. By 1905, they're operating an open-air tuberculosis camp in the Brightwood area, located here on the east side of Indianapolis, because this was something that was very much needed just in terms of trying to quell the great rampage of tuberculosis. They were reacting to the fact that there was very limited and certainly not enough, insufficient health care for Blacks in Indianapolis.
Over the years, the club successfully pressured local hospitals to treat more Black patients, including an additional dedicated ward at the Flower Mission Hospital. The women even opened their own clinic and started the city's first nursing program for African American women.
Beulah Wright Porter was a school teacher and went back to school, got her medical license degree, became a doctor, and then went back to teaching. But a lot of her skills were used as it related to some of their tuberculosis work. I marvel at their ability to come together to try to meet those needs, because these were women who very quickly assessed that they did not have the luxury of being individuals. But most interesting to me is that they were able to unify as it related to the women's clubs themselves. Because in addition to the formation of Women's Improvement Club in 1903, in 1905, Lillian Thomas Fox gave the call for the establishment of the Indiana State Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. And if you look through their minutes, their early minute books, it's replete with examples of them giving money that is to be turned over to aid the National Federation. So they knew that this was a problem that was not going away. There were issues there that needed to be dealt with. And, you know, these were not women who were financially sound necessarily, but these were women who knew how to organize and to reach out and try to secure funds for whatever it was they were doing. They weren't above using their own resources, as meager as they might have been, to contribute as well. The impact has been tremendous. The greatest thing that I would attribute to them again is education, because I think these women were women who were not just organized, but they were passionate about what they were doing and how important collaboration is. Those are probably the three greatest things they gave us, was education, passion, and collaboration.
The Indiana Historical Society is free on Thursdays during the summer. To learn more about the Women's Improvement Club or to see other incredible Indiana exhibits, visit indianahistory.org. The Indiana Historical Society Library is filled with carefully cataloged artifacts, but in Madison, the Schroeder Saddletree Factory Museum is the artifact. During the late 19th century, as settlers rushed west to discover unknown territory, river transportation was the heart of the New World, and Madison, Indiana became a center of industry.
We're midway between Cincinnati, upriver, and Louisville, Kentucky, downriver, and both of those cities had large saddle-making industries, and they needed saddle trees, which are the bones or the frame that a saddle maker attaches the leather to complete the saddle. There were 12 or 13 saddle tree factories in Madison, and they were producing upwards of 150,000 saddle trees per year and shipping them, as far as we know, worldwide.
Madison attracted residents from far and wide, including German immigrant Ben Schroeder. Schroeder started his own saddle tree company, working until his death in 1909, just as the dawn of the automobile threatened the industry nationwide.
Adapting to change was really critical for the Schroeders in keeping this business going. One of the early things that they did during the First World War was they got into glove manufacturing for a while. In the 1930s, they got into making clothespins. But, you know, by the 1930s, there was really not a great demand for saddle trees. The Schroeders, for some reason, were able to hang on, and they became the last of the saddle tree companies in Madison, of the 12 or 13 that were here, and one of the very last in the United States from the 19th century.
Between 1878, when the company began, and 1972, after the last of Schroeder's sons passed away, the business produced between 300,000 and 500,000 saddle trees in over 250 styles.
When I first walked into the factory, I felt like I was walking into King Tut's tomb, because it felt like the Schroeders had just left. There were shop aprons still hanging, there was a lunch pail by a machine, saddle tree parts that were cut 20, 30, 40 years ago were still sitting next to their machines. The original sawdust was on the floor. It was so significant that the National Park Service sent its Historic American Engineering Record emergency team here in the 1970s to document the site, because they weren't sure if there were any saddle tree making factories like this left in the United States. So they wanted to at least take some photos and do some drawings of it and do some recordation in case it should disappear.
With no remaining relatives, the estate gifted the factory to historic Madison in an effort to conserve the business's legacy. The organization did just that, treating the entire factory like an archaeological dig, gridding each square foot and tirelessly cataloging each item down to the sawdust on the floor. They sifted through not just the Schroeder history, but industrial history overall. They worked to save much more than just the buildings.
The Schroeders left such a rich site behind. They left parts and pieces in various stages of production. By looking at those parts and pieces of wood that were carved and shaped with different tools and machines, we were able to identify some of the processes in a step-by-step process as to how they made their saddle trees. And so over the course of a couple years, we were able to actually make a saddle tree, one saddle tree. Ben Schroeder would have fired us because we weren't producing 3 saddle trees per worker per day, which was their kind of production rate. Again, the idea was not only to preserve the buildings, but to try to, in some way, shape, or form, understand and preserve some of the manufacturing processes. Those are the sorts of things that disappear over time, and this is the only site in the nation where we are able to preserve the craft of the American saddle tree maker. Usually when you go to a museum or a historic site, it's the history of the rich and famous. The Schroeders were neither rich nor famous. They were middle-class business people with a small factory out in their backyard. So it's something that most Americans can relate to. People walk in here all the time and say, "Oh, this reminds me of Grandpa's barn, his woodwork shop." And all of a sudden, they are making the connection from something in their lives that was meaningful to something that they're seeing here today. We don't have history books. That stuff is kind of boring. But these places just bring history to life, and you just feel like you can almost reach out and touch those people that worked here. And so that's one of the things that makes this place so unique and important.
If you'd like to step back in time at the Schroeder Saddletree Factory or visit other historic Madison properties, go to historicmadisoninc.com for more information. Well, there aren't very many saddle tree makers working today, but if the Prophetstown Farm in Battleground, Indiana has its way, saddle trees will still be needed for years to come. In the soft glow of the summer sun, workers at the Prophetstown Farm prepare an afternoon snack for their special guests, Belgian draft horses, known for their hard work and gentle spirit.
Well, when we were growing up, we used to go with my father to shoe the horses. We used to be out all night, have to take our school books with us, and we originally first started pulling horses, and then we moved up. And I think what started us showing the horses is competition. I grew up with my brother and sister and all the 4-H'ers, and we just, it was a big competition thing back in the day when we were growing up, and it just continues on.
Every year, Steve and his family traverse the Midwest, participating in draft horse competitions at state and county fairs.
Most of the time when you're at the fairs, the people come up and they're just stunned how huge they are, and most of all, how quiet they are. How you can get them out of the stall, you can set a kid up on their back, and the parents are just like, they're amazed what you can do with them, and it's just unreal. These horses that we show and drive here today, it's just that they never wear out like the Belgian breed. I mean, we can drive them all day long, and they'll be ready to go again tomorrow. I mean, they have that much in them to do whatever you ask them.
And farmers like Steve are determined to keep their legacy alive, starting the Indiana Belgian Horse Association.
What we are trying to do is get out to all the people what the horses can do, what we do with the horses, draw people to like them. We need to have more people involved in it. It seems like it's dying off a little bit, but we want to get back at it and just have fun with the horses.
That passion is a common thread throughout Indiana's draft horse community, and it's led to the development of a unique venture, the farm at Prophetstown, where visitors and farmers alike get an up-close education unlike anywhere in the country.
Our farm is exclusively powered by horse-drawn power. The unique part is that, of course, we allow people to come here and try it for their own and experience it, and even our drop-in daily visitors can get right into the middle of it. We teach several clinics throughout the year, and we have people that come from all over the world to spend a weekend with us to learn how to harness and how to drive horses and how to farm with them.
Purdue Agriculture, Animal Science, Extension, the Veterinary School, we work hand in hand. Melissa and Lauren are both graduates of that program, and we cooperate with them, and it adds an extra bonus for our customer to come out here and get both experts from Purdue and people who actually do the farming. At the end of this year, I'll have passed 700 people that I've taught to farm with horses since 1999. And now we add the National Guard training that we teach them before they go to Afghanistan. So we're becoming a laboratory to learn how to do sustainable farming with animal-drawn power.
I like the fact that I don't use the diesel fuel. It takes me a little longer to get my hay done, but all their hay and all their forage crops and their pastures they put in. So it's kind of like your tractor making its own diesel. Yeah, overall, I would have to say I enjoy the quiet. I enjoy the smoothness of it. I like working with the animals, and that's a real plus. It's a much more pleasant time.
In today's world, we want to talk about a little better job of farming, a little more sensitive things. Small acre farmers, all these people you talk to today, they're not big farmers, they're small. Webster's doesn't have an acreage definition for farmers. So we use this to attract people. We think it's just a better way to farm on small acres. We're not talking about replacing production agriculture, but for 250 acres or less, this is a very competitive way to use the beast that was supposed to do this, to make it work, to provide a profit, to do just a little different type of farming than your neighbor. In 2008, they had a survey, and they found that there were 425,000 people in North America farming with horses. Less than 100,000 of them were Amish. And so people are looking at the whole agritourism movement. Bring people to your farm, even guys that grow corn and soybeans. Give horse-drawn rides throughout their property, educate people about agriculture. So that value-added thing has really made a resurgence in the heavy horse. Nobody ever stops and gets their picture taken with a John Deere. And a John Deere International never lays down in the spring and has its own replacement. I grew up near Holmes County, Ohio, the center of horse-drawn farming in the world. This stuff, raising these horses, driving these horses, farming with this stuff, feeling it, being all weathered and tired and smelling all this stuff. I don't know how you don't do it. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. You smell this stuff, you smell success. I don't know what else I'd do, to be honest with you. And so if you could do this and watch these people, watch them come here and change their mind about how they live. And I think we'll just help people to be just a little different.
The farm is open 7 days a week with special events going on throughout the summer. Learn more at prophetstown.org. Just like the folks at Prophetstown, our next musical guest, Bloomington's singer-songwriter Amy Olsner, is driven by a dedication and a love of her work.
I've been doing music my whole life, basically. When I was 5, I started playing Suzuki violin, which trains your ear instead of teaching you how to read music. That got me going on this intuitive approach to music that I still have today. So I guess I always loved music. And then I really fell in love with songwriting when I started college. And I just found it to be this really powerful way of processing feelings that I was having, as well as expressing myself to the world. I first started as a bedroom recording project. I really didn't want anyone else's input. I wanted to have complete creative control and to be in this safe little bubble of my room. But then I started really having the desire to create a fuller sound and to be louder and to write less folk-oriented songs and more rock songs. When I moved to Bloomington, I feel like things really came together because there are so many people to collaborate with. So I started playing with Justin Vollmer, also with Madeline Robinson. And then we just kind of added on from there, and now it's a 5-piece, which is a little out of control, but it's great. The reason why I worked on music for so long and didn't really share it was partly because it did actually feel very exposing and vulnerable. The more that I've figured out ways to write songs, but then really dress them up with this full band that I have, and also to really refine them so that it's not just raw emotion, but there's some sort of technique there, it feels a lot more comfortable to share. It's just a really cool platform to just be like, this is my perspective in the world, and maybe even let people in my life get to know me a little bit better. If I could make someone feel that they relate to what I'm going through a song, that would be the ultimate goal. As I'm trying to figure out what my goals are, what am I going for with this? I think it's kind of twofold. I think there's the individual success of engaging in the process. I find it really satisfying to just work on a craft that really calls out to me. I feel like that gives a lot of meaning to people's lives if they're just working on something and trying to improve on it. I would love to keep working on improving at songwriting and guitar playing and singing and everything forever. That would be ideal. And then feeling that you are part of a community of people and that you are being listened to and received and that your hard work is connecting with people, that is the other side of success that I want to reach towards. But I think I just really connected with music. I don't really want to do anything else. So I'm not really sure where it comes from, but I do know that if you find something that is the only thing that you really, really want to pour yourself into, you should do that thing.
And now, enjoy Amy O.
No storm in the bottom of my cup. Visions of summer rides, to-do lists on my mind. I live under the bridge. No, you cannot come through my skin. I live under the bridge. You like your coffee dark. I like to top it off. Arrow straight to the heart. You are a perfect shot. You are a perfect shot. Lost time, broke through the grind. God, when I give it to you, this time, you like metal and dirt. You like to see it shine. Arrow straight to the heart. You are a perfect shot. You are a perfect shot. Arrow straight to the heart. You are a perfect shot. You are a perfect shot. Arrow straight to the heart.
Amy O is currently on her summer tour. To find an upcoming performance in your area, go to her website, amyolsner.com. And as always, find more incredible Indiana stories at our website, weeklyspecial.org. Well, that's all for this episode of the Weekly Special. There are historical hidden gems in your own community, so get out there and explore. Have a great night. production support for the weekly special is provided by IU School of Public Health Bloomington, addressing public health needs by preventing disease, promoting health, and improving quality of life across the state and around the world through research, teaching, and community engagement. The Al Cobain Recognition Endowment Fund, established by friends and family of Al Cobain to support jazz initiatives on WTIU and WFIU. And WTIU members, thank you.